You need to suffer. Suffering is played an integral role in my life and who I've become as a person because I don't think without it I would want to push it nearly as hard as I've been. And this video was funny enough is actually inspired by a guy that um a close friend, I would call him now, that I've been working with for the past couple of days, going into the last week or whatever. But we've known each other for at least like a couple months now, growing with each other. Our businesses are growing together. But I started showing him, the aspects and of how to personal brand, by capturing attention online through your business, growing your business, just things of that nature. But what's crazy is that he has actually helped me in so much to understand what it actually means as a personal brander, whatever if that's what you want to call it, to actually open up and be personal. Because I was, I'm not even gonna say the last anything. My whole life, I've just been introverted, and I've held a lot of my own problems and a lot of my own personal traumas and things in that hasn't allowed me to grow as much as I would have liked, not just online, but in life in general, because I've always been a lone wolf, I felt like. And I know a lot of y'all can relate to that. The first thought that you think is nobody really gives a shit. And guess what? To some degree, you're right. But if you want to be seen as a person of value and you want to be relatable, it's extremely important to be able to tell your story. So I'm going to tell mine. Around 3.5, 4 years old, I was diagnosed with a very rare skin and muscle disease. It debilitated my life in a sense. I progressed as a small child would in the way that they were supposed to, but my life and my youth was derailed very early on due to that sickness. It's called dermatomyositis. Derma meaning skin, mito meaning muscle, and situs meaning the disease. I don't know. I don't know what situs means, but it sucked. Um, I went into remission for a very long portion of my life. So around like 14, 15, it started to subside. My body was going through puberty. Things kind of picked up for me. But between 3 and about 14, 15 years old, I suffered, bro. I suffered a lot. I was in a lot of pain. When other kids were walking up steps at 3 and 4, I'm crawling still. I remember seeing my mom cry about these things. My brother and sisters were, really down in the dumps, seeing the nature of their little brother's health and how much I was going through. And I didn't really understand it too much, but I just knew everyone was always kind of like, wow, Cass is really going through some things looking back now. But as a kid, you just see sad faces and people trying to mask them and hide them. And it's like, things must suck in a way, but maybe it's not as bad as I'm thinking about. But nonetheless, my body, I went through it. Like surgeries, gushing, oozing, sores. Athletics was all the way out the window for me. It was a very distant, far removed idea to play any kind of real sport because my body was fragile. I honestly couldn't play anything because at any given point, I was either going to get fucking creamed on the field or I was going to get severely injured. So, going through so much that I was already going through in my body, the idea of athletics was just not a thing for me. I had some really good friends growing up though, and really, really cool friends, most of which I still communicate with today. Life has went on. We're all grown men now, families, businesses. We're all doing our own separate things, but they were really, really good to me in my youth and didn't see me as that kind of crippled or handicapped kid. They really kept me close and inclusive, and I was one of them. And I love all y'all. Y'all ever see this video? I love all y'all for the way y'all treated me and made me feel, regardless of my health circumstances. So shout out to y'all guys for that, man. I haven't allowed myself to really open up about it now, being a 34-year-old man, because I see it as an archive in the story of Cassian Hervé. I'll be putting this more in my content just so people can know and understand more who I am. But just bringing it home to the point of suffering, you need to suffer. You need problems in your life. We're in an era of attention media where everyone is trying to capture attention and tell stories and build things without having a bridge as to who they were versus who they are now. So you're getting online and you're seeing people show up, but you don't really know who the person is behind the post. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of gurus just pop up overnight, giving you all these tips, giving you all this life advice about business, purpose, mastery, all these things, but you don't know what they actually went through. And that's not to say anyone has, those people didn't have anything that they went through, but I think we're struggling now in this more attention media phase of what it means to be on these platforms because we switched from social. Social was connection based. Hey, let's be friends. Let's get to know one another, or you connect with family and friends, whatever. But now we're all in this attention business where we get online and we're looking for things and we're looking to speak to and hear from people based solely upon attention. It's interest. We're only looking at things that pique our interest. But we're getting very used to people who don't have very interesting stories because nobody wants to open up. Nobody wants to say how they became the guru. Nobody wants to talk about what mastery really means to them and how they've evolved into this person that seems to know so much. I've suffered, like really, really suffered. And that was just one, this is just one aspect of many things that I've encountered and been through in my life. I'll allow more layers and layers to be peeled back over time. But just speaking to that part of my youth, I realized that despite of where I was physically being positioned, if I couldn't evolve in my body the way that I liked, I had to evolve mentally. There was no other way for me to see life but from the aspect of realizing that if I can't be in control of my body, there's one thing that I can always be in control of, and that's my mind. We want so much out of life and we desire to have things, but we don't want to reconcile the person from the past that we used to be. We'll just archive them away, throw them in a folder, don't pull them back out until something from our present triggers it. And which, if we're a man, we're going to be honest, we ain't going to tell nobody when that part of us comes out. We're not going to tell any person, our wives, girlfriends, kids, friends, family. We're not going to tell anybody when we're feeling emotional, when we're feeling upset, when things are bothering us, when just something's going on. You translate that to having a business or growing with people, building community. Nobody knows you. No one really knows where you came from or why your story is the way it is. They don't know where your information is coming from. They don't know why you believe what you believe. And I think that's the major gap that we're missing in today's world, period, but definitely online because it's all perception based. How can I make you trust me? How can I look like the person who knows it all and not look weak and vulnerable in the process? And that's like corny nowadays. We really like interesting people, and interesting people typically have backstories because they've been through shit. They've lived life. And in addition to living life, they've acquired knowledge, expertise, experience in real life and in real time. And because of that, they've built up skills, transferable skills that they can now give to other people. Because I had to grow mentally, I know how to communicate with people because I had to be alone in my own head basically my whole life. I became a deep thinker over the years because that's all I was ever alone with. That was the one thing that I chose to master because, like I said, the physical abilities just weren't there. But all glory to God that a lot of who I was in my youth has very, very much subsided since then. So I'm not the sick young boy that I always was. But I don't talk about that because it's always been perceived as a quote unquote weakness that no one really gives a shit about. And it's not the story, the actual problem itself that people are going to gravitate to. They're going to gravitate to the fact that you're a human being and that you've been through shit just like they did. So leveraging that in your life as a personal, it's just something to heal from. I strongly encourage y'all to just do. The more you get to know yourself and the more that you love on yourself and the more that you realize you don't have to be like everybody else, the more you start to accept yourself and accept your past, who you are today, and you grow into the person slowly and maturing into this person that you want to become over time. You don't need to look like everybody else online, bro. Like it's enough clones in the world. You are a one of one. So give yourself the time, the space, and the ability to heal, to grow, and to expand into the person that you know innately you really are on the inside. Put together people who look like they got it all happening. That's nice, but I relate to the messy middle because that's where I come from. I like people who actually have real stories where it was real issues and real problems in real time that they overcame or they found a way through because life was forcing them into a corner. That's why we relate to the hero's journey because we're all a hero in our own story. We all have a problem. Problem began to get worse. The story plays out, and somehow, some way, we found a solution to get through it. There was a transformation. There was a turning point in every point in our lives where we either had to swim or sink. It was had to go one way or the other, right? And from there, that's who you start to realize who you are. That's who you start to become, and that's how you differentiate yourself from everybody else on and offline and just in the world in general. You're a person like everybody else, but your story is not like everybody else's, and that's what you gotta embody. That's who you need to become. That's what you need to start talking about. Shout out to you too, John. Appreciate you, bro. Like again, when you gotta be surrounded by the right people who see your potential and who care about what you're actually doing. The right people who invest in you and see your ability for what it truly is will nurture you. And they'll help you see the blind spots about yourself that you don't see. Because we like comfort. We don't want to lean into the thing that's difficult for us naturally if we don't have to. But this is where I bring it all the way home and say you have to suffer. Suffering has become a superpower for me because it wasn't really a choice. It was more or less something that I had to just carry around with me. I've always been used to pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, and that's the driving force for who I am today as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, right? All these different hats that I have to wear because I realize that everything in life, no matter what role, hat, position, or path you walking on, all of these fucking things are difficult. Every single one. And if you're gonna take them to the extreme and be the best person to do it in that position, you're gonna suffer because you're gonna have to become someone different. Being different and changing and evolving and growing typically is going to embody a lot of problematic issues in your life. You're gonna be conflicting on the inside because growth hurts. It's painful. But if you live with the idea and you embody the idea that suffering is the only path through to what you want, you're going to be able to beat 99% of people in this world. Suffer not just because you have to, but because you want to. That sounds insane, but see it as a catalyst, as a key, a skeleton key that unlocks all the doors to the potential of the person that you can become in this world. More you seek out the thing that you know is not going to allow you to grow, the harder it's going to be for you to grow. Deal with it, bro. Become that one-on-one. See yourself as the architect of your own reality because it's ultimately you are.